forever, and it's always contagious. The state does random inspections around the state, and they inspected a beekeeper here in the county, the apiary up in Paraguna, and they identified another case of American foul brood, and they had me go out and do a follow-up inspection after they'd gone through the treatment process to deal with that disease. Another disease we have is European foul brood. It's also a bacteria, but it doesn't produce the spores, so it's not as lasting. And I found 3 cases of those this year. With European foul brood, quite often all you need to do is just give them a little sugar, and it brings right out of the problem. Maybe replace the queen, get different genetics in there, more resistant stock, or we can give them some antibiotic, and that not just pops them right out. Within a day, you see the cure. We can also use antibiotics on the American foul brood, but it doesn't do anything to the spores. So when we find that, the best treatment is to destroy the colony, burn it. Fire will kill the spores. But the state is allowing us to use antibiotics on a limited basis for American foul brood, and that's what was used out in Paraguna. And it seems to have worked, but he will have to use antibiotics on his hives for the rest of his life. Avoid those spores from flaring up again. We also look for a parasite called, it's a mite, a varroa mite, that if we had a proportionally sized parasite on our body, it would be about the size of your hand. So you can imagine how devastating that is to the bee, plus it vectors a couple of dozen viruses. So the combination of parasitization and viruses is really hard on the bees. And that's our biggest health threat right now. The average beekeeper loses half his bees every year. Half his hives die, and it's the varroa mites. So when I do these inspections, I test a sample of 300 bees and count the mites. And we're looking for no more than 2% infestation. And you'll see that I had, looks like 4 apiaries were at the limit or above. And so we have, those bees need to be treated. We have some acaricides that work pretty good, the same products that you'd use on livestock for fleas and ticks. They just formulated for the honeybee to be compatible with their lifestyle.
How do you administer that to a bee?
It's a little dropper. No, we have, it's impregnated in a plastic strip that we just slide the strip down between the combs. And as the bees walk over that, they get the product on their legs and body, and that kills the mites. It works pretty good.
Interesting.
We have some organic acids that also work pretty good. Formic acid and oxalic acid are natural products already in the hive. And we just increase the level of those acids in the hives, and that works pretty good. So we have some effective tools that we can do to control those mites.
So the half loss is usually due to the varroa mite?
Yeah. So what happens is a summer bee should live 5 to 6 weeks. And some of these viruses kill that bee within 2 days of when she emerges from the cell as an adult bee. Others live longer, but on average it shortens the life of the bee by 1/3. And it's that last third of their life is when they're foragers, they're going out and collecting the water and the pollen and the nectar. And they're dying before they reach that point in their age. And the younger bees will recognize that food's not coming in, and they'll go out and try and forage, but they're not mature enough to navigate. They don't come home. So the population of the hive declines really fast. In the fall, the in late August, September, early October, the because of the shortening daylight, the queen is dropping off her egg laying, and but you still have lots of new brood emerging. So you have wind up with a lot more nurse bees feeding larvae than you normally have throughout the rest of the year. And so those fall bees get fed really, really well, and they're fat. And that fat allows them to live 5 months instead of 5 weeks. So those are our winter bees. But if your hive is weakened because of these mites and diseases, then those bees don't get fed well, and they're dead in February. And I get lots of calls in February, March, my bees are dead. Well, how was your mite count in August? Well, I didn't check. Well, I know what killed them. It was the mites. We have to have them under control in mid-August when they start raising those winter bees. And that's a big part of what the state wants us to do as inspectors, is to teach the beekeepers these fundamentals so that they know how to manage their bees and be successful. I enjoy doing this job, but I have a kind of a selfish reason for it. I figure that if every other hive in the county is healthy, I don't have any threats to my bees. So I want everybody to have healthy bees. And that's my goal. Any questions?
So I read an article recently, Blaine, that said that, I guess bee populations have been declining over the years, but I read one recently that said they're actually doing better. Is that true?
Yeah, with the improvement in beekeeper education and the improvement of treatments that we have, it's improving a little bit. We can replace our losses pretty easily by doing splitting the colony, providing a new queen. And now we've got, I went into winter last year with 2 hives. One of them dies, that average 50% loss. I can split that hive in the spring, and now I'm back up to 2 again. So we can recover our losses. You don't get as much honey production when you do splits like that. But another reason for the, you've heard about the colony collapse disorder and how the bees are threatened. The statistics are kind of misleading. Back in the 40s, we had twice as many honeybee colonies in this country as we do today. And the common interpretation is, well, that's caused by these diseases. Well, what really happened there was during the Second World War, sugar was rationed, and the sugar was going to the war. And the people at home couldn't get sugar, so they got a hive of bees. And after the war, I don't need this hive of bees, I can buy sugar now. So that's why you have half as many hives as we did back in the early 40s. But still, with these diseases and parasites, our bees are in danger, and they need proper care. And that's what we as inspectors try to do, is help the beekeepers, give them good care.
So lay people usually think of like cars or pesticides, but really it comes down to these mites and the...
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of beekeepers think that, especially, you're talking about pesticides, especially the systemic pesticides, the assumption is that pesticides are killing the bees, and there is some of that if they're not properly applied. But when the state does an analysis of a hive that was suspected to be killed by pesticides, what they find are pesticides that the beekeeper put there himself.
Oh.
He's not using approved products. He's going down and getting Tactic from Cal Ranch and putting that in. It's not formulated for the bee. It's the same chemical, but doesn't have the right buffers and so on for the bee. So some beekeepers are shooting themselves in the foot by using the wrong product, thinking they're saving a little bit of money.
It's interesting how it comes down to education, it sounds like.
Yep. Everything.
Yeah.
All of life is education. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
for the privilege to serve the county.
Sure appreciate you.
For your service.
Blaine is I just shout out to Blaine. Blaine's an amazing individual. He teaches hunter safety. He works with 4-H kids. He does bees. He's just a great individual that serves our community and county, and he's just a wonderful individual. So thank you, Blaine. Let's see. Agenda item number 4, presentation of Appaloosa Solar Project update. And this is the 200 megawatt utility solar located near Three Peaks Solar off Lund Highway.
That is, good morning, commissioners. That is correct. My name is Luigi Resta. I am the president of R Plus Energies, and I appreciate your time. John, good morning as well. I started R Plus Energies 2 years ago, and we are a subsidiary of the Gardner Company out of Salt Lake City. You may know the company. It's a second-generation family-owned commercial real estate development group. They're fantastic. The Appaloosa project was started by me with a prior company, Onyx Renewable, and I'm grateful to say and to present to the commission that we now have possession of that project. So over the last year and a half, it's R Plus Energies has owned the project and been developing it again. And I really am appreciative of the fact that being backed by the Gardner Company, they're truly committed to the local stakeholders, which you folks have known that I'm very committed to being part of the community with these projects. So as R Plus, I also have some of my team here, Antonio, Tanner, Rick, and Spencer, as a growth. So we started the company 2 years ago. I'm up to about 18 employees right now. R Plus, or the Appaloosa Solar project at 200 megawatts is one of those projects. We have about 35 projects in 15 states. And what I thought I would do today is just take about 15 minutes and kind of give you guys a holistic, like 10,000-foot view of the industry, and then bring it down to Appaloosa, if that's all right with you. And I tend to do this. I've done it before in front of the commission. But so from a 10,000 foot view perspective, the renewable energy industry has really been progressing very rapidly around the world and in the United States. That's being brought mostly as a result of lower cost installation and equipment of the project, and the fact that we are now economically viable, competing against conventional fossil fuels in any market, in any district. We do recognize that there is tax incentives available for renewables. They are still available as well for fossil fuels. So if we're competing against the market, it's a competitive nature. What is happening is that the technology is advancing, and we're going from an analog era where you're shoving coal and turning rheostats into a digital era where we are using our cell phones that are more powerful computers than what they had in the 70s, with variable resource energy sources like wind and solar. We are also including large-scale energy storage, which is coming into that, but we're selling power from these renewable resources at 3 cents a kilowatt hour for 30 plus years. And again, it's a competitive resource in pretty much any market. So as the transition is happening and bringing it from, the larger kind of global perspective to Utah specifically, as an example, PacifiCorp has what we refer to as the IRP, an Integrated Resource Plan. The Integrated Resource Plan, a utility is required to update every 2 years, and it's a forward look of how they're going to manage to get all of us consumers power that's cost effective, sustainable, and clean in the sense that it doesn't destroy your computers when you plug it in. In 2014, the Integrated Resource Plan for PacifiCorp, when we built and developed the Utah Red Hills project here in Parowan, the Integrated Resource Plan had 8 megawatts of renewable energy in their collective 7-state system. Their Integrated Resource Plan that they came out with in September of 2019 had 8,000 megawatts. So in a few short years, they went, because again, it's economically viable, they went from 8 megawatts to 8,000. They also, as part of their Integrated Resource Plan, put out a request for proposal for all source, so meaning any technology in their whole system, the 7 states, for about 8,000 megawatts. we did submit several projects into that RFP. We don't know how we stand because they haven't released those yet. But you can see the transition, how fast the utility has moved. That is also consistent with large corporate off-takers and utilities, that it's the most economical resource for them. So they're buying more and more renewable energy. So bringing it to Appaloosa, I think it was in 2016 that we originally came before the commission. We got a conditional use permit for the project for 200 megawatts, plus a BESS system, a battery energy storage system included in that. And we also got the property tax CRA approved at that time. It's taken a while, but I'm proud to let you know that we have now signed a contract of power purchase agreement with PacifiCorp for the 200 megawatts of solar. So that just happened last week and means that the project is really happening. In addition to the kind of business update that I just gave, PacifiCorp has also undergone a significant strain on their interconnection requests. So projects actually asking the utility to clamp onto their system and how they're going to manage it. Since about the end of 2016, they kind of froze the interconnection queue because they had so many requests to go in there. And we were very fortunate with Appaloosa that we had already had an interconnection request. We had had the study completed, and we have a signed interconnection agreement for Appaloosa. Hundreds of projects after 2016, between 2016 and now, have not had that good fortune that we had, which was to be able to bring a project into the interconnection. So PacifiCorp, they had their integrated resource plan update. They had their request for proposal that they submitted. They are also going through what they're referring to as queue reform. So because of all the projects that got submitted after our project and until now, were not able to be studied. They're doing a first ready, first served. So there's a lot of projects probably in this county as well that don't have a signed interconnection agreement. And as a result of, if they get shortlisted as part of their request for a proposal, then they would be first ready and they will get studied for their interconnection, but it still is going to take time. I bring that up because we did sign a PPA, or power purchase agreement, for Appaloosa Solar for the 200 megawatts of solar. We did not get the agreement for the battery storage. That's okay, because also in the time period between 2016 and today, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, has approved a new ruling called 845, which is an excess capacity or surplus energy interconnection agreement. So now at the federal level, you can actually add energy storage to an existing interconnection queue position, but it has to be built first. So for our Appaloosa Solar, we have the BESS, the battery energy storage system. We don't have a contract to sell it, but we do have now a federal rule that will allow us to sell it, and we are working on marketing the addition of energy storage plus some extra solar. So that's very exciting as well. As part of the power purchase agreement that we have recently signed, it does have the project going into service at the end of 2023. So we will be before the commission again, I think with Danny Stewart, to ask for an extension on the property tax. The project won't be built in 2022, which is the current timeline that is outlined in that agreement, and it will be starting commission in 2024. We expect that we'll start construction in the middle of 2022 and then go through 2023. So it's very exciting. It is the largest project. It's 200 megawatts AC, which will be about 250 megawatts DC. It's located out on Lund Highway on some of Russ Rubber's property, who's one of the landowners who's here. And we're very excited about it with the addition of the energy storage. As far as additional updates, what I'd like to say is we at R Plus also have a project in Emery County we're very excited about, and a CARP project in Carbon County that we will be starting construction on in January of this year. I mentioned those other two projects because in addition with the Gardner Company and the transition that we're making on the energy world, we feel very compelled and obligated to kind of demonstrate our commitment to the local stakeholders. So we're going to be working on, this is a new concept, but just so you guys are familiar with it, we're we're going to work on a program where we can take high school age kids, so kids that just graduated from high school, 18-year-olds, and bring in a few of them to work on our project, going through logistics and quality control and engineering. We'll have them on the project site during the construction period, and then at the end of that, we'll provide scholarships for those kids. So there'll be a paid kind of intern position plus a scholarship to go into a vocational training at the college level. And we're going to do that in Carbon County. We'll do that in Emory County, and we'd like to do that here as well. The idea is that we provide an alternative career path to what they might normally do to go directly into the mining industry. The whole goal is to provide opportunity to get involved in a renewable energy spectrum, field, whether it's engineering, logistics, welding, design, architecture, whatever it is, that there is both a commitment from a project perspective, but that it goes on beyond that. So we're very excited. Anyway, that's the big update. And do you have any questions?
I have a question on your battery storage. So there's not very many solar projects that have the battery storage, is there?
Battery, it's becoming more and more prevalent. We at R Plus Energies, we are really focused. I didn't give this back before, but we're on 4 kind of technologies. We're doing solar development, solar plus battery, which would be a lithium or some type of flow redox battery, wind, and then pump storage hydro, which is where you have an upper reservoir and a lower reservoir, and you pump when you have excess power, you pump water uphill, and when you need power, you let the water go down. The battery that are being deployed largely are lithium ion. They are getting to scale where you have containers that'll have 3 to 4 megawatts of batteries in a single container, and they're linking them both DC linked, so behind the inverter, and on the AC side. There are some examples of large batteries. There's none in Utah yet. There's some in Arizona and Nevada and other states, but it's in development.
It's interesting.
That was the same general question I had. Why was the battery portion of this Appaloosa denied?
Well, it wasn't technically denied. Well, it was denied. We submitted it into the request for proposal, and the RFP outlines that PacifiCorp had were very distinct obligations, and it was a non-conforming project in the sense that in order for Appaloosa Solar 2, the battery part to happen, the first Appaloosa Solar has to be built. So it was a contingent submission, and because we have the interconnection for Appaloosa 1, we have the contract to sell, the power of the PPA, it still was a contingent offer by PacifiCorp's perspective, but the cost is really low because we're going to have an infrastructure already there with the substation, and we'll just go back in a few months and remarket it.
Seems to be the way to go with the battery. What do you get? 16, 18 hours a day instead of 12 or so?
Yeah, most of the chemical storage batteries are geared towards 2 to 4 hours of energy storage. For this project, we did 4 hours of storage. So you would take, 6 p.m. when the sun starts setting till 10 p.m. You would be able to have that energy available. And again, we feel like this site with the battery, we're referring to it as Appaloosa Solar 2, is probably one of the best, most economical projects that the state could see. We have high yield of solar. We have the great interconnection position. Everything is perfect for the project. So it's just a question of time for Appaloosa 2.
So with Appaloosa 1, is it an integrated deal where if you build the battery storage part of it, will it service both phases, or will it just be Appaloosa 2?
It'll be a separate component. So it'll be Appaloosa Solar 2, separate. So we're very excited. We appreciate your time, and I'm available for answer questions anytime.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you,
update.
Jay.
Education, appreciate it. All right, agenda item number 5, consideration to abate prorated taxes for APN 8-34 after June 12, 2020 structure fire, proration pursuant to Utah Code. Cindy Bullock. Cindy, good to have you here.
Good morning, gentlemen. I bring this to you pursuant to the code that you said 592-1004-5 that allows a proration actually of value if there is a natural disaster. And natural disaster by code is described as an explosion, fire, flood, storm, tornado, wind, earthquake, lightning, or other adverse event. We have used this code a couple of times to make adjustments in value for example, the Bryan Head fire. The following year, some flooding that was happening down west of town, different fires west of Canaryville. And to be honest, we've applied this pretty broadly, even if it isn't necessarily what you would consider a natural disaster, just feeling that we want to be able to give people a little bit of a break, for lack of a different word, if their house is destroyed. The code does say that they have to let us know within 45 days of the natural disaster or come to Board of Equalization. This particular homeowner has missed both of those deadlines, so I can no longer make an adjustment to the value. So I am requesting that we would make that same adjustment to the actual taxes rather than the value as an abatement of taxes. We have done this at least one other time. I thought we had done it more than once, but I did find in commission minutes the minutes were typed up November 13th, 2017. But I don't know if, that was actually the commission date where we had done the same thing with some flooding, where we had abated the taxes. The amount that I'm requesting or that I'm asking is $569.60. So it's not a significant amount in the budget, but it is significant for these people that have lost their house. The house is still standing, but talking to the homeowner, there was quite a bit of damage, partially, as you know, if you've ever been in a structure fire, from the fire itself, and then also from the water damage. And then because they weren't able to go right in and fix it, now there's mold. So they're talking about a pretty much a tear down. They don't know for sure how much they're going to be able to salvage, but that's the short version. I have a copy of the fire report if you want to see it, but otherwise it's just, like I said, they have missed the deadline, so technically, I cannot make any adjustment to the value. It would be abating taxes, but $569.60, and I put a spreadsheet in there. And basically, what we do is the land and building prior to the fire, then the land and building after, and prorate that. So the land itself, there's no adjustment to the land because it's still standing. In Bryan Head, we did make a little bit of an adjustment to the land because it took out so much of their trees and landscape. This, the building, and I left it post-fire at basically 5%, which is just the footings and some of the basement. But anyway, so.
569.60 is across all taxing entities, correct?
Yes, not just the county, but you get to make that decision for all the other
All the
entities.
others, yeah.
It would probably be, I don't know, 30-40% of that is Iron County's portion. 60% goes to the school district, probably another, I don't know, 5% to maybe 10% to the city.
Something like that.
Probably 20-30% of it is the county's.
You say this happened one other time where they missed the deadline and there was a disaster and we...
That I can find in minutes. I didn't look through every minute, but I had remembered this one and I was able to find it, so I do have that. I thought we had done it another time, but I can only find minutes for where we had done it in November of 2017, and it was after the Bryan Head fire, the next year when we had some flooding out in what's that subdivision? Out here. Yeah.
Oh, Maple
Springs, yeah.
So the
So-
deadline was June, and when did the fire take place?
The fire was June 12th. The 45
So
days.
it was really close.
The 45 days is just, I mean, I understand there has to be a deadline, but most people, if you lose your house, the last thing you're thinking about in June, if you've just lost your house, is, oh, I'm going to reach out to the county assessor and have her do something about my taxes. You just don't normally think about that. And so then the other opportunity is through Board of Equalization, and I don't know why they didn't. I'm a little bit hesitant. You know, we've had people reach out and say, hey, I didn't get my tax bill, or I was out of town and couldn't apply to Board of Equalization. Those are generally, the last one that I remember 2 weeks ago was income property, and we were possibly too high, but I think it's still different than if you actually lose your house, so.
I think we need to have compassion on the few people that actually lose the whole structure of their home. So I'm not concerned with setting any kind of precedent or anything. I think we should forgive this amount. That's my opinion.
I'm good with that.
You got a
Nicole, would you come up to the microphone? Sorry.
I think a lot of people just don't know they have the option to do this. When we had that home burned down in Paraguna, I actually called Jane, the clerk there, and had her contact the owner and let them know they needed to reach out to the assessor within the 45 days. I think Cedar City has done that in the past, but we need to maybe reach out to our cities and just make sure if they have a home burned down, they let the people know that. So I just think a lot of times they just aren't aware, and of course aren't aware of that deadline. So
Well, and I think that's true. And then to Alma's point, just because they don't navigate the bureaucracy doesn't mean they should. I mean, yeah.
I move that we abate the prorated taxes for APN A-34 because of their June 12th, 2020 structure fire that destroyed their home in the amount of $569.60.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to abate the prorated taxes for APN A34 as described.
Can
All in
I
favor? Yes.
just interject just to make sure? Is abate the right verb? Are we
Abate,
prorating?
I don't know, because they're abating that much of it, so
Okay.
they're not gonna abate the whole thing. I think that in code, that's what it gives the commissioners the authority to do for the public good.
I just wasn't sure if
don't-
we wanted to use a different verb there, but okay, good.
What other word would we?
Well, we had talked about proration or, or forgiveness. Abate. I just wondered if that was associated with some of the programs that Christine does. So I just didn't want us to be off in the weeds.
We can forgive, but they're not due yet, so we can put it in however you're comfortable. You get to write up the minutes.
But I get to write what was said.
I'll change my motion to whatever you feel comfortable with. But still returning, forgiving.
No, I caused this, but I don't necessarily have an answer
abating.
for you.
So,
How about just use the both words, abate or forgive?
Okay.
good.
I'll
Thanks,
second.
sorry.
I'll second that. Whatever.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks,
you.
Cindy. Item number 6, discussion of possible approval of a contract to McMillan LLC to conduct an environmental impact statement for the Parowan Valley Watershed Plan Project. Steve Platt.
This is a gift we want to give you. We're not asking for something. Most of you know Lance Smith. He's former Commissioner Wayne Smith's son. He works now with NRCS. We've had, because of the Bryan Head fire, significant federal money that has helped us mitigate some of those damages. It also gave the NRCS a chance to look basin-wide on the Parowan Basin. I'm talking from Little Creek to Red Creek to Parowan to Summit to see what we can do to mitigate any potential flood damage. Lance has come up with $500,000. We thought we were doing a EA, which is an environmental assessment. We got into that, and Bowen Collins identified more than $25 million worth of work, basically to get flood channels from each of those canyon mouths to the freeway. So this has gone from an EA to an EIS on a federal level. A month ago, we spent some time with Commissioner Adams and Lance and talked to this company that we're talking about today, McMillan. Talked about them moving to an EIS. It'll take 2 years. NRCS has come up with $325,000, which they would like to give Iron County to enable this contractor to do that, so we can get to some construction projects. Lance, do you want to say any more about what I've just said?
I think you covered it very well. Thank you, Steve.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Because of this administration, EISs used to take as long as 10 years. Now they have to take 24 months or less. And so that will happen. That is an awesome thing, in my opinion.
Me too. Mike did look at this contract. He had a couple of questions. Mike, to solve those questions for you, they were basically talking about two contractors, not the same contractor, so they weren't contradictory. And it's typically what the NRCS uses, and I feel good about the contract. So we would like your signature today.
Okay.
And John has all the documents ready for you to sign.
Okay. I would move for approval of a contract with Macmillan LLC to conduct an environmental impact statement for the Perrin Valley Watershed Plan project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now next is you want to go to the next one?
Sure.
Review and possible
Thanks,
approval of a bid opening.
The million.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Lance.
Only 325,000. So.
Thought you were going to say million. Review and possible approval of a bid opening and subsequent contract for aggregate crushing.
And I think you each have a copy of the tabulations. Is that correct?
I saw it on my email.
Yes.
And just in case, I brought it for you. John, do you have it?
Yeah. You got a copy though?
Yes.
Okay. It'll go well in my notes.
We had about 8 contractors look at the package. I thought I'd have more than 4 bids, but in spite of only having 4 bids, we got an excellent price. Feller was $5.50 a cubic yard for 35,000 cubic yards. This is crushed gravel out to Newcastle, so Preston can do the Hart Road. That's a total of $192,500. I would recommend that we award this to Feller, and I need your concurrence. If you concur, commissioners, I will go ahead and prepare the contracts, have the contractor get all his licenses, insurance, and bonding, and bring all that back to you when we're ready to sign.
Okay.
Ready for motion? I move that we approve and accept the bid of Feller Enterprises for crushing untreated base course aggregate at the Newcastle site. Their bid is $5.50 per cubic yard for a total of $192,500.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. What was our last? Isn't that about what we paid for our last gravel crushing? Or was it in the
Keith
forward?
Gilbert in the Parowan Valley,
Uh-huh.
$4.68.
Yep.
But they've
Those are all
told us
good
it's
prices.
never going to be that low
I know,
again.
I realize that.
We're looking probably in the future to $6 to $7.
Those are good prices right now, aren't they?
Yes.
Thank you.
John, when can I pick up those signatured signed copies?
So they're signed by me and Paul. Mike's just in the hall on a call, and they're on his desk
Okay.
right there. So, and then if you could just go down and get a
Stamp?
from my office.
Thank you. I'll just wait for Mike to come back.
Yeah, he's just in the hall here.
All right, we'll go to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible approval of a commitment of $100,000 to assist Zion National Park to purchase a multimodal transit system using electric buses and charging stations. We might want to note that this is CARES Act money that is being used for that.
And this is, in one sense, to ratify the letter that was already provided to them with this commitment. So this was that miscommunication that I didn't realize that we hadn't already taken care of. Anyway, so this is to formalize that.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move for approval of a commitment of $100,000 to Zion National Park to purchase a multimodal transit system using electric buses and charging stations.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the $100,000 commitment to assist Zion National Park to purchase a multimodal transit system using electric buses and charging station. And this is to approve the letter we've already sent. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll go to
I might
our-
add on that, Mr. Chairman, that they needed a lot of match, and because we had the CARES Act funding, we felt like we could do $100,000 from that, so it doesn't come out of general funds. But their old buses down there are propane, and that fleet is just about had. And Zion Park's had unprecedented numbers, and so they really badly need this electric bus system. I just want the public to know all these facts, and we're one of the 3 counties that benefit the most from the tourism of Zion National Park. So I think that's I'm glad I wish COVID had never happened, but I'm glad we have the CARES Act money to help them with use some of it to help them. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Well, and it helps us, us in Washington County the most,
And
right?
Kane.
And Kane. But and if they don't come to Zion, they don't go to Bryce a lot of times. So it really helps those other counties over on that side of the hill. So glad to be supportive of that. Guess no employee items today.
Double checked.
Yeah, that's unusual.
That might be the first.
All right, so non-delegated items, prairie dog issues. I know that I think Reed and Mike Worthen's been installing some water lines and stuff out on our property by Summit to help with the prairie dogs that's there. County boards, nothing today.
Not today.
Okay, I think that's it for today. I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
That's going to be the best watered pasture in the world out there. They've got like